Chef Steph here. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I want to share with you one of my favorite chicken and kale soup recipes. It's so wonderful when there's a hint of coolness in the air. This is a great soup packed full of vegetables, which we don't get enough of in our diets. And it's a great way to help you eat healthier, and it's delicious. Let's get started. As you can see, I already have several vegetables already prepared, but let's go over how I did it. The first thing I want to start with is my carrot. I've already peeled it, and again, I'm going to hold my knife properly using the pinch grip. I'm making sure I'm standing up straight, and I'm going to cut it in half to make it more manageable. Let's just set that aside. And this is small. We want to keep everything chopped up about the same size because it cooks at about the same rate that way. So I'm simply going to keep my hand out of the way, and I'm just going to, this is a small carrot, so I'm just going to dice it up here or cut it into rounds. And then as we get bigger, we'll go ahead and cut those. Those are fine for now because they're about the same size. So we're going to add that, but this one, I'm going to take the end off. Let's set that aside. And I am going to go right through this and cut it in half. And then since it's a little wide, I'm actually going to go through it one more time. Let's do the other side. There. And then let me just pick these little pieces right here in my bowl. Great. All right, keep our hands back out of the way, and we'll just dice these up. There. Now, additionally, you could do this in your food processor if you wanted to save some prep time. All right, let's get our celery ready. I am going to take the end off. We'll set this aside, put it in my trash bin here. Again, cut it into a manageable piece. Let's cut it in half. Let's cut it in half again. Pull those aside. Repeat. There we go. Let's line them all up with our knife. Fingers back. Glide that knife right over your board. There we go, and we're done. There's our celery prep. All right, let's add that to our bowl. All right, next up, let's do our bell pepper. What I want to do is I want to cut the end off. We'll save this for use later. Rotate it around, cut the top off. Set that aside, and we can reach right in and pull out the seeds. Discard those. And then I'm going to go right down the side, and we're going to open it up. Pull that part out. There we go. And then what I want to do is I'm going to cut it into a manageable piece because we're not going to need all of this for our recipe. And we want to take out this white pithy part right here and the seeds, any seeds that are remaining, because sometimes it can be a little bit bitter and chewy, and we don't want that in our soup. So let's just take our knife and we're just going to run it right over it and remove those white pithy parts. Here we go. I'll just trim this off right here. Perfect. Got a few seeds. There we go, awesome. Put that right in the trash. Now I'm gonna flip it over, and just like I cut a while ago, we're just gonna cut into fine little strips. Keeping my hand back out of the way. There we go. Scoot these over. Whoops, one's trying to get off my cutting board there. All right, let's put those all together here. And let's go ahead and dice those right up. You could use any type of bell pepper. I prefer to use the yellow or green or red. You could use any type of bell pepper. I prefer to use the yellow or red or orange because I feel like the green one just overpowers whatever you put it in. So if you use a green one, use about a quarter of the amount. All right. Go ahead and finish chopping this up. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and put this in my bowl I have right here. Fantastic. All right, set that right there, and I'm just going to put these right here. We'll save it for another recipe. All right, next up, I've got a tomato. I'm going to cut the tomato in half, And then I'm gonna turn it over so I don't have things rolling on my cutting board. I'm gonna go back through it and quarter it, set that aside, and then we'll turn it around. And then I am going to take this meaty part out. These are Roma tomatoes, which have the most flesh, but you could use any type of tomato in your soup. It's really using what you have available to you in your market. All right, and I'm just gonna turn these over. There we go. And again. And one more. Here we go. Now I am going to chop these up because I am going to put them in. Let's go ahead and chop these up. We'll just rough chop them. There we go. And let's add that right to our bowl with our peppers. There we go. Perfect. All right, let's wipe off our cutting board and our knife. And let's tackle our onion. All right, the first thing we want to do is cut off the top. Now we have a onion that's not rolling around on our board, right? And we're going to go right through the root. Okay, we'll set this aside and hopefully it will peel for us. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, just depends on how fresh it is. The tighter it is, the harder it is to peel, especially when they're really fresh and right out of the dirt. All right, that looks really good. Let's get this other half because we're gonna need about a cup. So this is about a medium onion, so we're gonna use all of it. Now you could use a white onion or a red onion in the soup. Yellow ones are more economical typically at the store. Okay, let's wipe our board a little bit. There we go. All right, now we're gonna pretend there's an imaginary 1-inch line from here up. I'm gonna make parallel cuts, never going all the way through the top because I want the onion to hold together. It'll make it easier for me to dice. You can make it as thick or thin. Let's try and keep it uniform. There, as you can see, my onion's all still together. Let's just rotate it, line it up, keep your fingers back, and just slice right through that. Just a beautiful, quick dice. No crying in the kitchen. All right, let's do the other half. Same way. Rotate. And there we go. There is our onion. All right. We don't want to use this big, thick stem in our soup. So we're just going to pull the leafy part off, and you could save this and chop it up and use it in something else. But today we only want the leafy green. So simply get your cleaned leaf and tightly grip it and just slice it into very small shreds. Additionally, you can do this in your food processor. And did you know that kale freezes great? It's easy to put in the little freezer bags, and you can stack them up flat in your freezer and pull them out when you need it. There, that looks great. Now that we have all of our ingredients prepped, let's head over to the stove. Here we are at the stove, and I've got my fire turned on. My pot is warmed up, and I'm gonna add some olive oil. It's important that we add our food to warmed up oil. So as you can see, it's moving, so it's heating, it's moving very fluidly. So it means it's warm because we want to hear that sizzle when we put our food in. If we put our food in too soon, then what's going to happen? It's going to absorb all that oil, and we want the oil to stay in the pan and coat it, not be absorbed like a sponge. Let's add our onions in first. There you go. That's the sound we want to hear. All right, so we're adding our onions. We'll add our celery. and our carrots, and our garlic. There we go. And then I'm going to add a little bit of salt. And then let's give this a stir. Now we're going to saute this for about 5 minutes just to kind of soften them up. So give it a stir. I've got it set on medium-high heat. All right, and we're just going to let that cook for about 5 minutes, stirring occasionally. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. You can see that the onions are not as brightly white and are more translucent. So we cooked everything just a little bit. It's getting mighty warm in there, so that's great. So what we want to do at this point is we want to go ahead and add in our chicken. Now, I've got skin on with bone chicken thighs. Honestly, you could use any type of meat in the soup. The chicken is just nice and light in flavor, but you could use anything in it. All right, so we're gonna put this in. So what we're doing is we're creating our own chicken broth by doing it this way. We're just gonna put these in there. All right. And then we'll add in our tomatoes right on top. And we're gonna add our lentils. Lentils cook much faster than beans. They usually take about 30 minutes. So these are called red lentils, but they're really orange. So we're gonna add those right in. And I also am gonna add Italian seasoning. We're gonna add that right in. And then let's add our water. We're adding 8 cups of water. And then we're gonna turn the heat up just a little bit because we wanna bring it up as I'm reducing the temperature by adding in the water. Now that everything is in the pan, we're gonna bring it up to a boil, but we're gonna watch it. As you can see, it's come to a boil. We wanna reduce the heat down to low, to a simmer, and let it simmer for about 30 minutes, and then occasionally check on it during that time period. Our chicken is cooled down. Let's go ahead and prepare it and put it back into our warm soup. Simply gonna pull the skin off and set it aside. Put that over a little bit. Get the meat here. Make sure we don't get any bones in the soup. You could always purchase boneless, skinless, but with the skin and the bone is most economical. I like to leave the skin and the bones on when I'm making the soup because it adds a lot of flavor. And you can use a knife and cut this up, or you can simply break it up with your fingers. Great, let's go ahead and add that right into our soup. Put this back on my plate. I'm gonna remove my gloves. I have a little bit of balsamic vinegar I wanna add in. I'm gonna pour that right in to add a very savory, deep layer of flavor. And we have our kale left to add. Now, if you plan on freezing this soup and not using it right away, I want you to hold off from putting all the kale in. So remember what I said earlier about freezing it? Then you can put a little bit in as you reheat it. Otherwise, it's gonna get really soggy, and it's nice to have a little bit of texture to it. Let's just go ahead and put this in. There we go. This is also a great way to introduce someone to kale who may be not so familiar with it. We do always want to taste it to make sure that our seasonings are balanced. Sometimes you might need to add a little more pepper or seasoning or spice to it. Let's serve it up. Smells fantastic. And there you have it.